evening.
Hi, I'm Laura Lee Petris, and I'm representing SGI, the Soka Gakkai International Buddhist.
Father Pat Cahill, St. Eugene Catholic Church.
David Gillette, I'm representing the Baha'i faith.
Bathsheba Mahiri, I'm the rabbi of the Reformed Congregation in town, Congregation of Massachusetts.
My name is Diu Lei. I'm the High Priest of Covenant Old and Wild and co-representing Wicca and paganism.
I'm Lady Passion, High Priestess of Covenant Old and Wild in West Asheville. I'm co-representing Wicca and paganism.
I'm Jackie Sims. I am with the Ethical Society of Asheville, and I'm representing humanism.
I'm Satoshi Singh Khalsa. I'm on a spiritual path. The proper pronunciation is Sikh. Americans would be a little uncomfortable with that, so it's called Sikh. And it literally means seeker or student of truth.
My name is Hari Mandir Singh Khalsa, and I'm also on the Sikh path, and I'd say I represent consciousness rather than a particular path or faith.
My name is Sunny Kolgi. I'm with the Zen Buddhist group called Windhorse Zen Community.
My name is Terry Hollifield. I'm a church planter here in Asheville, currently planting the Paradigm Church, and I represent, hope to articulate, Protestant Christianity.
My name is Billy Kelly, and I am a low priest of atheism and secular humanism.
My name is Imam Juma, or you can call in the English language Friday, or the German language Freitag, and I co-representing Islam. I'm the Imam of the Islamic Society of Muslims. Thank you so much for trying to know something about Islam.
My name is Abdul Miyas, PhD at Council University. I'm here to represent Islam, the religion of the oneness of the God.
My name's Rob Cabelli. I'm the rabbi of Congregation Beth Israel here in Asheville.
Thank you all for being here tonight. Okay, so our first broad question that I'm going to give to the group to work with here for the first part of the program is religion relevant to the individual? If so, in what ways? Or if not, in what ways? There are several kind of sub-topic questions. Oh, this is good.
Modern religion in action.
Good teamwork. So part of what that question, that larger question entails is, does religion help individuals navigate the ups and downs of life? And if so, in what ways? Does religion give us the answers to the meaning of life? So I'd like to just let anyone at this moment on the panel just kind of give a little bit of a perspective from your particular tradition or perspective. What might be an answer to that question?
Don't we need to define religion?
Great. I'll define it.
Take it away.
A simple breakdown of returning to origins. That's all. That's what it amounts to. And what we all have to understand is that it doesn't do any good to try to reinvent the wheel. We're all standing on the shoulders of our ancestors. And so, how are we going to act? Since we are social creatures, we are creatures of habit, we have cultures which is dictated to by latitude and longitude on the Earth's surface. We tend to group, and it ends up being religion, not causing necessarily a diversity toward traveling to the one or to whatever, wherever we are going or wherever we came from. It's a matter of perspective as to whether or not there is a God, there isn't a God, there's Yahweh, there's any name that you want to come up with, or no name, or you don't believe that when you hold an infant baby in your hand that it came from a creator. Whatever, that's up to the individual. But I think the simple explanation of religion has to do, as I said, basically with your ancestry and whether or not you want to argue with it.
I would say that some people say that religion is codified spirituality. Some say it is, some say it isn't. Some like it, some don't. Some have made it a mockery and a sham and a shame. And some have not, and some have lived up to that, the very highest ideals. I say that, religion may have been given a bad rap in modern times, but it does not have to be a negative word. It just stands for a set of beliefs, whether codified or not, that each individual has, that defines their personal spirituality and every which way they want to pursue it. None of us are the same. We know that. So nobody has the right to dictate anybody's spirituality or what they do with their soul. And this is what we think that witches believe and pagans tend to believe, and that's what we say about religion.
And I would take that to a more inclusive, I think, definition as well. I would agree with you. And I would say in terms of our group at large, I'm sitting next to a humanist who would say he has no spirituality, but I would include him in our group of religious discussion in that, in terms of, there are benchmarks or sort of a grid through which you would view reality and make sense of life and existence and that sort of thing. So maybe, a religious view would be a view of, what are our origins, what's the meaning of life, what's our destiny, what's our morality, how do we get along, those sorts of things, maybe in the broader context.
I have something to add here. If you have or go to Walmart and buy a TV, the TV cannot come alone. You have to have a catalog with it to tell you what and what's not. So there must be something that tells you or connect you first to a higher, supreme, that tells you what you would do in your life to save your life and to save the life of others, and what you shouldn't do to save also your life and to save the lives of others. So there must be something to connect you with God. A God, whether, in different meaning, in Islam or Christianity or Judaism or paganism, whatever, religion that you are going to believe in, or whatever, if a human made, theory or way that you are going to believe in. But there must be something to connect you, to control your actions. You cannot live your life like this. You cannot do whatever you like. There must be, even here in America, you have, some law that controls your actions. You are free, but if you think about the world itself, there are some restrictions. That is, don't harm others. Who tells you this? The law, the institution here, not in Islam or other religions, heavenly, I'm talking about the heavenly ones. There are some institutions that comes revealed upon the Prophet, and we have to follow them. And in the other, human-made, religions, there are some people that, they are higher in thinking, and they, did their best, their heart, to provide their followers with something to follow. That's, that's my, my answer for the question, and we have to have something to believe in. Thank you.
I would say that you can define religion in different ways. You can define it, in terms of deity or, postulate a God. You can define it in terms of that and dogma, a set of beliefs. That's one way to define religion. Buddhism, certainly Zen, doesn't fit into that category. But you can also, if you define religion as that which is something that seeks to address the most fundamental questions of the human being, and that's what makes us human, then, who are we? Why are we here? Why must there be pain and death? And what's this all about? Then, certainly, that's exactly what it is. So it really depends on how we find it.
I think of religion in terms of primal human need. And what is that real need? We each of us are born into the world, and we're an entity, a being. We cannot place ourselves or occupy the body, if you will, the personhood of any other human being except ourselves. And in that sense, we are quite alone. And yet we are surrounded by a world. Our origins, of course, are of interest to us. Destiny is of interest to us. All of these things are of interest to us, but ultimately, it is how do we relate to the entirety of this world on the largest macroscopic scale to the scale of the person sitting next to me. How do I relate to other people? Where do I place myself in time and space relative to the universe? Ultimately, all of our questions, in a certain sense, boil down to this question, this need. And it's a need for human beings who aggregate, as they always do, into groups, to learn how to, in some fashion, bridge that gap between self and other. Religion...
I would say that it's much more about interconnection, if that's what you're talking about.
Pardon me?
If that's what you're talking about, interconnection, not aloneness, but more interconnection and interaction, and that we're not alone. We're all part of each other, not part of each other, but part of each other, not part of each other, in and out, together, not together, but together, not together. It's quantum stuff. It's scientific, it's magic, it's a whole big microcosm and macrocosm as you're talking about. That's what Wiccans would say. I think we're partly...
Not so different.
Not exactly.
And I get to that idea of a primal need. I believe is that there's two parts of us. There's our body and there's our soul. And that to nourish our body is fairly straightforward. We need sleep, we need food, we need water. But to nourish the other part of our existence, which is the soul, that is what we need religion.
So I think does not take 30 minutes or 1 hour to define a religion, or to say anything related to religion. The religion is our lives. So how can I define a word in 30 minutes? It takes your whole life. So how can you combine yourself or confine yourself to 30 minutes or 1 hour?
But I think the point was the meaning of life, right?
Yeah.
So, what does each of our religions say about the meaning of life?
Yeah.
Do we have something to offer people that says we know the meaning of life, or we don't know, or it's up for grabs, or what?
And in a religion, for example, in Islam, I know that the word individual means the whole Islam, because a person can represent the whole Islam. You can know Islam through a person, all the person. But not, as any other religion. All persons, they are different. We are not alike. Look at the hand, your hand. They are different. So, in the same religion, Islam, for example, you cannot find two similar persons. They are different in their thoughts, and their way of life, and their actions, and their deeds, and everything. But at the end, they, go together under the umbrella of the word Islam.
I think from a SGI perspective, that the function or purpose of religion is absolute happiness, that for each individual to become absolutely happy. And I relate this more to just myself in my own life and how it affects my environment. And my environment is a mirror of myself. And if I don't like what I'm seeing in my environment, if I'm not in harmony with it, I have to really go back and do my practice and polish my own life, so that I can create humanism or value. So I think, from my perspective or from our perspective, that it's really about how do we create value in the world with our lives, in our interaction.
And I think that back to the part of the question as to whether or not religion can help our life in dealing with the ups and downs of our human experience, I think it's an important distinction maybe to introduce between an organized religion and one personal faith, and the distinction between religion and faith. And obviously they're connected in basically every single instance, but from the Catholic Christian perspective, our faith certainly helps us deal with the ups and downs of life, and the joys of life, as well as the grief and anguish that we experience. And one's faith recognizes that we can get through the difficult times, and we look forward to eternal happiness as well. So that's something that certainly can change one's entire perspective on how they view the world.
From a humanistic standpoint, I can speak both to the point of religion being important and religion not being important. The definition of humanism that I particularly like myself is any system or mode of thought or action in which human interests, values, and dignity predominate. From a philosophical standpoint, a definition for humanism includes a variety of ethical theory and practice that emphasize reason, scientific inquiry, human fulfillment in the natural world, and often rejects the importance of belief in God. So, from a humanistic standpoint, I might say that religion may not be important for some individuals. From an ethical culture humanism standpoint, I would say that my definition of religion is very much what I heard the rabbi say and Lady Passion say, that it's about a feeling of a commitment to living in harmony with others and our natural environment, and that what we do and how we treat others is much more important than the individual creeds that we might each have. And ethical culture doesn't have any creeds.
I would like to echo a lot of what Jackie was saying. It feels a little interesting to be on an interfaith panel discussion, being a person who doesn't think of himself as a person of faith. I try to think of myself, and I try to be a person of faith. I try to be a person of scientific inquiry. And I think that all of the things that you can get from religion, the kinds of ability to navigate the ups and downs of life, the ability to connect interpersonally, all of those sorts of nourishments you can get through the study of philosophy, through science, through art, literature, your family and friends, the bonds that you have with other people, political and social causes that you might get involved with, things that you feel passionate about. I think all of those kinds of things can be met without having to accept creedal claims and beliefs on insufficient evidence.
I hear you, and I hear you, and I appreciate you both. Here's my point. Which God you talk about, and which goddess, and how many, maybe. Maybe back here up. But as for you, I mean, what's wrong with thinking, with acknowledging that maybe mythology and history and people's past has reason, has validity, has tradition, and that might not be worth keeping, worth looking into, worth validating, worth appreciating, worth perpetuating even. And you know, that's all I say.
No, that's cool. And I have no problem accepting that those traditions can be important and valid. But in terms of the truth claim as to whether those gods exist, I simply want to see real evidence. Not just conjecture, not just hearsay, not just speculation, not just relying on authority or relying on tradition. I want to see real evidence for those kinds of things, the same way that we expect real evidence from the sciences and things like that.
I think that no matter what the religion or the lifestyle or the approach, there's a certain place of a point of reference that we all try to find in our lives. So the question is, like, what is the perspective? What is the approach? are we following a path because somebody else said that's what we should do? Or are we having an experience and expanding into ourselves, you know, the infinite self? Or are we staying limited in the finite self? And for me, the question that I'm always asking is, am I present? Do I have a conclusion? Have I already decided this? Have I stopped gathering information? Have I stopped observing? And that's what, to me, the perspective is really important to have, because we can get tripped up in anything if we stop paying attention.
I'm so glad you raised that. For me, religion and Judaism is about being present, living with intention. And it's not a goal, it's a process. What is the path or approach to encountering other beings? What is the path or approach to living in each moment? And it can't be, for me, defined in terms of there is a goal of happiness, or there's a goal of this, or there's a goal of anything, but rather it's what is my approach to how I am present with myself and in the world from moment to moment.
I would like to add something to this, like from Islamic perspective, the religion, which is from the God, and we should, prove the existence of the God as the Islam is looking for. Your religion or your faith should have the answers for all the questions that may be raised up by all the people who are not yet believing in this religion. It should have the answers for any other thoughts, for the, like we call them, the non-believers, as we are Muslims believe in one God. Now, if you look to our life as human beings, we just, in terms of, forgive me to speak a little bit about, in terms of science. In terms of like time and space, we are very, very, very maybe nothing tiny in compared to the time or the space of this universe we are in. I don't think the universe appears to us, but we appear in this universe. Each one of us will live, I don't know, in average maybe 60, 70 years old. So that time for us is very tiny. We just come and leave to this very specific or limited period of time. So if we go back to the generations in our religion or our faith to Adam's, I think he would carry the truth for all of us, right? From all different religions and thoughts. He will tell us the truth and where did he come from. But in Islam, carries the answers for all these questions. At the same time, the existence of the God is not only to believe in the oneness of the God, this is the uniqueness of Islam, but the existence of the God is something that you can find or look at it from the thoughts, or let's say the brain that we have in our bodies, which we have to use we've used it to develop like very advanced technologies, but at the same time we have to use it to find our way to the God who created. Now, someone will ask, where did the God come from? Or who created the God if the God is the creator? So at that point, we should remember something, and this is again from Islamic perspective, that the God is beyond any limits. If you could limit him to your thoughts, then he is not a God. He's not capable to be the God to control all of these things which beyond our capabilities in terms of space or time. So this is from Islamic, again, perspective.
I agree with that, and in the sense that we as humans tend to be very sealed up, especially nowadays, in our own world of our own making. We pave over the earth with asphalt. We spend our time staring into screens on TVs or computers all the time. We only talk to other people. We don't even really interact with the natural world that much, most of us anymore, except when we're pulling out weeds in our backyard, right? So it's frankly, I think it's quite arrogant of us to say that, there is either no deity out there or larger spirit or soul, or that it has to be proven in a scientific objective sense. Well, You know, you go to talk to people who live very much in nature, they're considered primitive nowadays, but they tend to be the most pious and religious and spiritual people you'll ever find, because they are outside of that insulation. And that's with us too. What we do is we try to have our temples outside in nature, because then you've taken off all that man-made trappings that blinds you to the vastness of the universe and that experience within, which is the only true proof, I think, of any god, goddess, or what have you.
To that I would add the fact that science was precursed by magic, and the only reason there's science today is because the alchemists in the medieval time were persecuted and threatened to be burned at the stake. If they didn't give up their magic, they said, "Oh my gosh, we're not witches, we're alchemists, we're scientists. We devoid ourselves of this spirituality. You know, prove it or lose it." And they did so. And they have done so, and they continue to do so. So now it's, you know, mercantile, science, and then what? Spirituality / religion? I mean, it's divorced now. And that is a shame and a travesty.
I hope it doesn't appear arrogant to ask for evidence for things. It seems to me that the burden of proof is on the claimant. If someone says that something exists, it's not up to me to demonstrate that it doesn't exist. It's up to someone else to prove that it does exist. And I'm not trying to be dogmatic or rude about asking for that evidence. It's simply as a seeker of truth and as someone who is genuinely open-minded and honestly trying to find out what's actually true about the world, nature, the universe, answer is 42 and all that good stuff. I'm simply using the same sorts of standards that I would for any other claim. And if I didn't do that, I would be gullible and credulous and just accept every single thing that comes down. I don't want the idea of open-mindedness to be divorced from skepticism. I would like to see the two married together. I would like to see open-mindedness honestly automatically thought of as a skeptical open-mindedness. Open-minded but not so open that your brains fall out, basically.
But I would hold that in the core of every faith system, every religious system, every system, in fact, ideally, there is a core of humility. We may at times trumpet claims, but ultimately the core, I know this is true in Islam, it's true in Judaism, it's true in almost any faith I'm aware of, that the ultimate core of that faith is humility and gratitude. And that on some level is more important than any of the particular claims that are put forward. And in fact, we could argue that that's true for science as well. Science is arguably about the unknown rather than about the known. It's only a process of knowledge, and the same, I would say, is true of religion and faith as well. So we can surely be skeptical, but to the extent that we embrace humility, we don't need to have as much skepticism.
And I appreciate the humility. However, sometimes it seems that paradoxically, there's this idea of we are so humble, we are so lowly, we are nothing compared to God, but yet He created all of this with us in mind. We are so special. We are the special creation of God.
It's hard being human.
I can imagine.
Regarding the...
Okay, so sorry, in respect to, the students actually created these questions to hand over, and we've got this good dialogue going. So just to maybe redirect and kind of think through the second part of the program, because we've been talking a little bit about more individual aspects here. The second major question to be thinking about is religion relevant to society? And I think we've started picking up some pieces of that. But there are some questions that the students had with regard to, does evil exist? How does your community have a perspective on war, perhaps? Or, and my favorite question on the list is Asheville a cesspool of sin? Any of those that people would like to pick up at this point? Rabbi, would you like to start us here?
If I were to ask people who come to my temple why they come, they would say they come
for a sense of unity. And I think that while we learn how to be small communities, that informs how we behave in a larger community. And so in a small religious community, people are encouraged to reach their own potential, to transcend who they are today, to become the best part of themselves that they can become. And I think that from the point of view of is there evil, I think that I don't think any of us would be so arrogant to say that evil doesn't exist. For a Jew, there are actually two sides that reside within all of us, and we all have the potential at any given moment to choose between our inclination that makes us choose good and our inclination that draws us away from that and that makes us, falls us into a path of good. And I think that the uniqueness of the Jewish path in that is that the responsibility is within the individual. And then it's the community which is the container that helps that person stay choosing in good ways and is the reminder and is the cheerleader of choosing the best parts of ourselves to come out. And so I guess I'll leave it there.
And by excavating our own minds and hearts through, well, we very much emphasize meditation, looking into oneself, to discover that which is really beyond good and evil, this that is beyond birth and death, to experience this for ourselves, not to take it on someone else's word, not to believe it because you read it or someone else says it, but to directly experience that is what's gets at the very cause of all the violence and aggression. It's not about curing so much as preventing, because as long as people are the way they are and go around believing in this self-other paradigm, which is so fundamental, then we're going to have this division, we're going to have separation, and we're going to have ultimately wars and violence. So how do we get in there, right here? I mean, how can we have peace in the world unless we have peace in our world, which is right here, in a very concrete way. So I haven't heard a lot from people about really getting at the very roots of this. Who really are you? That's the question. In Zen, it's not so much about who is God, but who are you? Because those aren't two at the deepest level.
My answer to the question of does evil exist? Yes, it does. And we have to be careful actually to how we define evil. From my own point of view, I think evil is something that someone should do by intention. Otherwise, it should not be an evil if it's unintentional. And if you ask how evil exists and why, the answer is that it's in our nature. We've been created in a way that we want to follow our desires, and that's why maybe some people will choose the wrong way to fulfill these desires, or to achieve things or to do things by the wrong way. At the same time, I would say the devil is behind most of this, but also ourselves is, behind this evil.
Pagans would say we're not innately evil at all. In fact, often as not, our culture and governments impose wrongs that press us against each other, make us fight for scraps, and that force us to be evil to each other. And that this should be not allowed. It should be fought by activism and outward measures as well as magical measures, and resisting in every way possible. Because we can get along, we should get along, we have gotten along in the past, It's not always been so. Don't let them tell you that. It's not always been so. I'm not saying there's been a golden age of goddess worship and all that. I'm saying that it's not always been so. And one must act. One must look to educate themselves about propaganda and about history and repetition of history and their self-motivation and the motivations of others and innate human foibles, sure, but also innate human good. To look for it and to cultivate it where you can and wherever you can. And that's what Lucius would say.
Say from the Christian perspective that in many ways agreeing with my Islamic friend down there, that objectively evil is an entity. Evil exists objectively. And I think it's interesting, most of us here, at least existentially, would say that when evil, something that we would consider unpleasant even, is on our doorstep, we would recognize it as evil. There are certain things that we would all agree that are just always wrong, and some things we would agree that, kindness is always a virtue. And I think Christianity specifically, maybe particularly, would say that, in order to not only see the evil out there, which we would all agree with, that, hey, that, it's government action is evil, or, forcing your beliefs on me is evil, or whatever. Society is made up of people, is it not? And so we must have to ask ourselves the question, if there is evil out there, might there also be evil in here? Right? And so, not only sling the mud, your actions are evil, but maybe my actions also, and there'd be a distinctive between, obviously, several distinctives between Christianity and Zen Buddhism, whereas, correct me if I'm wrong, but then ultimately in Zen Buddhism there is no distinction between good and evil. There simply is what is.
Yeah, but you have to be careful with that one. As they say, Zen is above morality, but morality is not below Zen, and there's a very strong foundation in the precepts and
I would, okay, I understand that. But I would say, then objectively, though, there would be a standard on which to judge something good or evil. So we could, existentially, would say, yes, we work out this way, but ultimately there is no good and evil.
You have to be very careful with that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, don't put Zen out there as no good. Evil is delusion, and we have to work with it in ourselves, in the world, one piece. But yeah, I wouldn't want to characterize it. And I know that's kind of common perception.
How do you define evil?
As delusion of our own original nature that is beyond.
Well, I would define evil this way. When people speak of the devil, it is in fact a hyphenated word, and it is D with. So D is to take away. And whether you're talking about getting all built up, or you're talking about just getting really angry and, quote, losing your temper, as in steel has temper, you lose your will. So there is no entity. Just as, get this, with Sikh, there is no fundamentalism because there is no God. You see? What a Sikh vows to is no man, no woman, living, dead, forget it. We bow to the sword, which is the sword of truth, which is a double-edged sword. The path we live, if we live the straight path toward our possible destiny, which means our dharma, or some people would say religion, although dharma is a spiritual path, so it's a daily thing. In other words, we don't go to temple to worship. We go to temple for selfish reasons because it's a selfish lifestyle. Selfish in the long run because we learn over lifetimes that the highest thing we can do is serve. But it's selfish in as much as we're going to get these blessings. But the way we worship is connected to the word work. Every minute, every day, every hour, we're worshiping. If we're living a right life. of balance and awareness. And so that's, which comes back to this business of evil or bad, or are there bad people, or are there good? It's balance or lack of balance. So therefore, for my own self, I'm a master of Raj Yoga. That is a form of basically of exercise. It's not religion, but it's physical exercises, it's verbal, it's sound currents, all things to cause you to come back to balance within your life, help you be balanced. Like you have a car, plane, boat, it's got a wheel in it, you have to keep bringing it back to balance. It goes off one side, the other, you bring it back. You have to do the same thing with your body, whether it's with food or with exercise or whatever it is. Because the fact is, from, again, the Sikh point of view, we don't come here to become spiritual. We don't come here to be religious. We come here to have a physical experience because we are already spiritual. All of us are already spirits. So the only thing that we can do is hamper or enhance the soul journey through time and space. And that's our spirit.
It seems to me that a lot of the definitions of evil have centered on a lot of metaphysical and supernatural assumptions. And for me, I understand concepts of evil very naturalistically. It seems to me that evil is unnecessary, gratuitous, pointless suffering, which one would expect in a godless universe. Now, we would expect that sort of thing, but we certainly don't accept it. We fight against it with every fiber of our beings, and we try to make the world a better place, and leave the world a better place than we found it, and be the change that we want to see in the world and all that good stuff. So as for the kinds of assertions about we are spirits and this, that, and the other, I can't accept those kinds of notions, so I can't accept those metaphysical, supernatural understandings of evil. But if you define evil naturalistically, I have no problem accepting that.
But you wouldn't call it evil. You'd call it what is, and you don't like it.
Right.
But doesn't an amoeba suffer? An amoeba is a prospect to many other amoebas. Does it not suffer? I mean, comparatively. I mean, what is suffering compared? I mean, is only human suffering what counts?
No, of course not.
Of course. So, I mean...
I'm a vegan and an animal rights advocate.
Right, but even on a bacterial level, we all suffer. I mean, does that have to...
But that doesn't have anything to do with the spirit or the divine or anything like that.
I'd like to bring it back to intentioned behavior and that concept of delusion as well, because I think that fits in very well with the Jewish concept of what's known as a Yetzer HaTov, a good inclination, and a Yetzer Hara, which is a bad inclination. But what that's really understood is not as being evil. In a certain sense, it's understood as being the balance between ego and selflessness. And that's just an oversimplification. But it's really that we're all strive from a religious perspective, from a spiritual perspective, from a truth-seeking perspective. We strive for some sense of balance and wholeness, which requires a great depth of self-awareness. And so in that sense, when we are out of balance, then we might behave in a way that, from a moral, philosophical point of view, might be construed and rightly defined as evil, but it's reflecting something inside ourselves that is not whole, that we are not whole with ourselves. And I think that is very naturalistic. I think it's right where it is. It's not about spirits, it's about the fact that each of us is an extraordinarily complex being, far more complex than we are usually capable of understanding. And without understanding ourselves and our relation to other beings, then we are prone, whether it is willfully or not, to err and harm others.
I think a couple of go ahead. I think all of you are familiar with the proverb that to err is human and to forgive is Right. So, searching yourself. Just sit alone and ask yourself. Even yourself, there is some evil and good within yourself. How can you know the importance of good unless there is some evil in this earth? There must be some evil, some kind of any evil, to feel that good. How can you feel that the importance of your health unless you are sick? You have to be sick sometimes to feel the blessing that God has, bestowed upon you, which is health. Also, there are some, guidelines that all of us, we have to follow in this life, as I've said in the beginning, that we have to control our actions, not to harm others. In Islam, the life of others is the most important thing that you have to, even if you see someone that is going to be killed, which is evil, you have to defend him. Even if you have been killed, there is some reward for you. Because we are trying to prevent some evil from taking a place. And these guidelines that we have to follow in our lives, sometimes you have to pass them. This is evil. And there must be some room for repentance to remind yourself that I have, did something evil and I have to repent, I have to correct myself again. And as I've said in the beginning, to err is human and to forgive is divine.
Yeah, doing some lessons in evil, the high perspective is a little different. We're taught that evil is the lack of good. So, evil in and of itself doesn't exist in the same way that darkness doesn't exist, except as the absence of light. And so, the analogy of sickness and health, that sickness would be a lack of health. And so in the Baha'i faith, the main teachings now are that we're all one human family. It doesn't matter where you come from, what religious tradition, we're all one human family. And so, when we're taught about the virtues of God, things like generosity, right? Well, what's the lack of generosity? Well, it's greed. What's the lack of kindness, maliciousness, or whatever? Things that we might see out there and say, well, that's evil. But what it is a lack of good. And so that's sort of the purpose of religion is to fill that vacuum, which could be perceived as evil, and to fill that with something divine, which is seen as good. And so there's just a little different perspective. And as far as ourselves, again, with the idea that we're the coming together of two parts, physical and soul, and that the purpose of our life is to acquire these divine virtues. And if we do that, we remove more and more and more of what you might think of evil. As you turn on more and more light, you remove more and more darkness. That once we have achieved a certain level of that, then we as a society, as a people, will be able to solve so many things that we're struggling with.
And connected to that, one of the most brilliant people probably to walk the earth was a professor at the University of Paris who lived from 1225 to 1274, Thomas Aquinas. And he actually defined evil as the absence of good. And it's connected to an expression I heard one time that every Catholic church should say, sinners welcome. And that without sinners, there's no church. That's the whole point. So I'm making the conclusion that not only is Asheville a cesspool of sin, so is the Catholic Church. We gather as sinners, recognizing that privation, and like Rabbi said, in order to challenge ourselves to be better people, be the people that we believe God has called us to be.
I would like to say one thing too. Thank you. In response to that, the religion is to bring in something divine. That's not the only perspective. There's another perspective that you clear away everything that is extra, that is added on, that is covering up what is, well, we don't use so much in Zen the word divine. But the truth of our being is right here all the time. We don't have to bring anything in. We don't have to add anything. We just need to clear out what's obscuring there and let this come forth. There's nothing we have to pull in.
Wouldn't that be like being lost and stopping to ask yourself for directions?
See, because we have the directions right here. And you go deep enough,
You got a GPS on
there's
it.
a...
Well, that's very interesting. Again, from the Sikh, the yogic Sikh perspective, we don't operate from our heads. We believe that in bowing we come to the answers. In bowing we not only humble ourselves, we come to the answers of life. We don't come to the answers of life through our heads. And I think that that's what I hear the majority of the people, adults, speak of, really, and when we should be in our hearts. We really need to be in our hearts. And physically, if you do this, and if you do it for a sustained period of time, which happens to be 11 minutes, you kneel down and you bow, you put your head to your forehead to the ground, especially when you're having a real grave problem, whether it's anger or sorrow or whatever it is. When you would stand back up, slowly of course, you don't want to bring the blood to your head too fast, but you would find that life is not so bad. And that's just a physiological happening that I'm talking about being caused. And that's, you have to understand that all of this talk is not just scientific, or it's not just faith. There is experiential aspects to all of, whether it's Judaism or Mohammedanism or Baha'i, whatever these, from the pagans, the back. I spent 30 years in the Alaska bush. I know something about nature. I lived in the wilderness. I didn't come out for months at a time. Okay, one period of time I had an older sister who demanded I come out, so I'd stayed in for 7 years straight. Okay, I was with nature, be involved in.
I think that's where religion can play a really key role in society, especially right now when we've got a situation where, you know, as you've heard, 1% of the population owns most of the resources. It's a situation where greed has been elevated to the status of the highest virtue, and all, not just by the greedy, but also by all of us who are forced to live by that, the rule of money, which is really more of a god in our society than any other that we claim to profess. I mean, honestly, if you look around you, it sure seems that way. And I think that by reminding one another that, for instance, the root of religion, the etymological root means reconnecting, relinking, reminding everybody that we're part of a whole and we can't just run off like cancer cells and take over the body for our own self-benefit. You know, that as in nature, if that happens, then the body dies. And as in most religions, you'll find that most ethical precepts are focused on compassion on others, serving others, helping others. Things that are errant, just totally focused on yourself, tend to be viewed as wrong and going off the path, maybe sinful, maybe evil. So anyway, that's kind of trying to tie it back to this subject of how religion relates to society. I think we've been really, a lot of us in religion have been really falling down on that. We haven't been reminding people.
Let's say we.
Well, collectively, you know. Okay.
I would say that witches do make a distinction between morality and ethics. And I think there's an overemphasis in the vast majority of monotheists and other types of thought on morality versus ethics. Primordial, internal, born with ethics. Right and wrong, everybody's born with. They don't need to be told or taught. You know, if they don't have it, it's because it's been suppressed, repressed, oppressed, some oppression in some way. It's been let out of them. You know, and it's not innate. People don't give it up. You know, without it being forced upon them. And, you know, by cultures, by parents and schools and other institutions and things, you know, that are all scientific sometimes. You know, and all geared towards making us all goodly worker bees. But, you know, where's it gotten us? Where's it going to get us? Where's it ever have gotten us? ultimately, you don't die with goods, you don't die with anything other than what you've done, what you think about yourself, and what other people think about you, and it's not a one-shot life. We do not believe as pagans, as witches, that it's a one-shot life. We believe in reincarnation. That doesn't give us a free pass to do whatever we want to, and to thwart ethics and values and morality, if you will. No, in fact, it gives us more an incentive to do right each time, to get better, for the greater good and for ourselves. And even if we evolve to a great state, that doesn't mean we get off the wheel. We are immortal. We believe that our souls are immortal, kind of like vampires, if you will. We can't die. We were created in the Big Bang or whatnot, and nothing that's created can be destroyed. And so we just transmutate, and we might be a bug. We might be on this planet, that planet, who knows? But it actually gives you an incentive to be kind to everybody as best you can. But really try very hard to encourage them to be kind to you too, and that's what witches would say.
I think I found some commonality with what you were saying. I wanted to, and I think we all would probably share that. You asked how religion helps society, and again, if we define religion in the broad sense of trying to make sense of the world we live in, and to quote another great Catholic, C.S. Lewis, if we consider our lives a ship, we got to figure out, okay, how do I not sink? How do I not bump into other ships? And I got to make sure I'm on course. We're all trying to figure those things out. And I think a role of religion, even in a humanist sense, would be how do we, if we can get at some answers for the broader questions, then it helps us answer the particular questions, because we're searching for the broader answers. And I think all of us would understand that it's through those lenses that we see. We all live in the same world. We're just trying to make sense of it, And so we're trying to use our things like what logically coheres, what bears evidential truth. Can I test this sort of thing? Is there existential relevance? Does it help me live? And so I think we're all sort of asking the same questions, and whether we realize it or not, using the same tests for our answers. So I think religion plays a huge role in helping us live with each other, because we're trying to get at ultimate questions.
But I have to put us on trial here, because arguably religion has, in the real world, done far more of just the opposite.
Exactly. Thank you.
And this needs to be said.
Well, it would also be true, though, that much evil has been done in the name of non-religion. So that's a broad brush.
Yes, but evil done in the name of religion, at least from my perspective, speaking solely for myself, generally comes from making claims about one religion, whichever one it is. And it's been done in the name of almost every religion, of holding an absolute truth and negating the faiths, the lives, the relevance and value of others.
Well, but isn't that an absolute truth claim? You're claiming an absolute truth there, saying that we shouldn't have them. So
I'm not saying we shouldn't have them. Wait. I never said we shouldn't.
You said that's what causes wars and stuff.
When we make that claim and do it in such a way as to therefore negate the value of others, then we have a serious problem.
I would agree with that. When any belief system is wielded as a power, it can be extremely destructive. I think all of us choose our paths because we think they correctly describe reality, or else we wouldn't follow them. But
that's where the humility comes in.
That's right.
And the need
to
for
get to your point, what you're saying, Lady Passion, when we, if any of our religions were, we would seek to wield that as power, I think that's probably the ultimate evil.
And that's why we need separation of church and state.
I agree with her.
No
matter what I believe, separation.
Okay, that's great. Nice there. That's great. Just a moment. I'm gonna just stop us at the moment, because while these are fantastic perspectives that have given us a lot to chew over, I'd actually like to turn and get some questions from the audience for the remaining amount of time. We can do this all night, but we can't in some ways, right? So,
I have a question for everyone here. I would love that is kind of ironic because of their religion.
Rabbi Belli came very close to something that is common to every single one of you. It's been studied and known. It's a quality of being, a person, so I don't know, adjective. And if you could each pop with one, yours is probably going to be humility. But you can change that, or we can go on each person one answer, please. And I'll tell you.
What's the question?
What is the commonality of like, example would be humility, love, forgiveness, all these different qualities of a being that ties you all together. It's common to all of your religions and spiritualities and actually moralities too. What is that one word? Please. Compassion. Want to start?
I'm going to say
compassion. Compassion once? Twice? Do we have humility? Another? Huh?
Empowerment.
One word.
One word. Okay, let's just start at one side. Rabbi Belli?
I defer.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to say 3 words, which is probably for life's highest potential, Buddha, bringing out where it's high.
I'll say charity.
Love.
Transcending.
I have to agree with empowerment.
Yeah. Empowerment for witches. Fight your oppressors.
Empathy.
Compassion, and then? Compassion.
Experiential awareness.
Forgiveness.
Reason hyphen compassion. It's just one word.
I go agree with love.
Be good.
What was that?
Be good, or any equivalent expression in English. This is, I mean language proficiency. Be good.
Yeah.
Or goodness. So that's it.
Understanding in every sense of the word.
I'd just like to point out that reason/compassion covers everything that everybody says.
Carson, go ahead.
I have a question that particularly relates to the humanistic perspective because of the...
I can't hear you.
I'm asking about the humanistic perspective of particularly skepticism, because I guess maybe my understanding is limited, but from my contact with the Skeptic Society, it relies on the ability to make a truth claim with evidence. And I feel like that demands either like a large scientific training, like maybe multiple degrees, that's not available to like a lot of people, or I'm relegated to like this many beliefs. So I guess I'm hoping somebody can tell me why I'm wrong.
So what was the question again?
Skepticism is built on truth claims being provable with objective and empirical information. And I feel like, and in particular, it relies on a scientific consensus. And I feel like if I'm supposed to be able to assess a scientific consensus, I need like a lot of years of education with something I'm relatively uninterested in.
So you're wondering why some of us, maybe most of us, would say faith?
Well, actually, I'm wondering how I can reconcile science and my lack of training thereof with believing anything someday.
From a humanist perspective, let me say that we live with the questions. We don't live with the answers.
Right.
We find answers which may not be permanent. They change. And yet we learn to be comfortable with that. Questioning is just part of life. It's curiosity. It's being open to new information that comes in.
So having this many beliefs is advantageous.
Well, from which perspective we would say that we never say, take our word for it. We say, hey, let's do a circle. Experience it for yourself. Or do your own thing in your private time. You know, we'll teach you how to do stuff, and you can learn how to do your own stuff, but don't take our word for it. the gods come through, and nature comes through, and spells and magic comes through in a myriad ways. It's the black stuff between the stars. It's the stuff that you don't want to see. It's the stuff you can't see, you can't prove. It's the black hole you can't scientifically prove exists, and yet, with certain calculations, well, they say that it does. It's the quantum physics behind the quantum physics beneath all that. And so, they're getting a little too close for our comfort, to be frank. We're not sure we want magic to be proven. We kind of want them to back off a little bit.
I don't think there's any Taoists represented here on the panel. But there's a saying that says, in the pursuit of knowledge, something is gained. And every day. In the pursuit of the Tao, something is lost every day. And I see beliefs as a liability, personally. But I'm not into religion. So I'm not into beliefs. I'm into awareness. I'm into consciousness. I'm into merging with everything as if there's nothing to separate me from the cosmic creative force. And that's like a experiential thing.
So hold on, I know that there could be lots of perspectives on this, but I want to draw in some other questions as well and kind of keep working in different directions, because I saw at least 8 or 9 hands up here.
Sorry, can I just be very sure, because he asked a question about skepticism.
Okay.
So kind of presenting a skeptical perspective on it.
Okay.
I would like to affirm everything that Jackie said. She said everything better than I could possibly do. However, regarding not having enough time and necessarily the interest to become a PhD in some form of science to be able to understand these things, start out with the books that popularize science. Go out and get Carl Sagan's Demon-Haunted World. If that doesn't inspire you to be passionate about skepticism and science, I don't know what will, but you'll at least have an understanding of how science operates, why science comes to the tentative conclusions that it comes to, and I think it will definitely inspire you to go on to try to understand other things, other realms of science, maybe even philosophy, and it'll give you an evaluative method to understand and communicate on truth claims made by people from various perspectives, without having to necessarily buy into any one of those perspectives.
Thank you. Just very quickly, I have a PhD in science. And let me say that critical thinking is one of the most valuable things that we can achieve for ourselves, along with some of the other things we've spoken of here. But at the end of the day, both science and religion are only of value when they are embracing the unknown, rather than making claims about all being known.
I agree.
Okay, so I saw a hand back there, yes? Quiet.
So within nearly every religion, especially within Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, there is religious text. And the foundations of that religion are based upon the evaluations of these texts. And within skepticism, I have my own views on text, and I was just wondering what a skeptic view of that is, and what the intercorrelation between views on text between the 3 most related texts between the Old Testament, New Testament, and Islam, the Quran, just the views between and how they correlate, and then skepticism.
Can I say something quickly, then I don't fit into any of the categories? There's these 4 lines about Zen. It's a teaching outside the scriptures, beyond words and letters, pointing directly to the human mind and personally realizing Buddha.
And there's a second part of that question that I had that I didn't really know if I wanted to get into, which was, could a religion still exist that was built on the text without that text?
First of all, I'd like to correct the pronouncing of Islam. This Islam means peace or submission. It is not Islam, as all of you, or most of you pronounce. Because in the Arabic language, Islam means darkness, which comes from the stem that is azlama, and the Arabic word zalama, which means something bad. injustice or darkness, but it is Islam. And we are not Muhammadanism. We are not, we don't ascribe ourselves to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him. We are, we are ascribing ourselves to the religion that we have been, has been chosen by God, the Supreme One, to us. We are not, we are not ascribing ourselves like Christianity or like Judaism. They don't, ascribe themselves to Moses, peace be upon him. Because you cannot say Moses. Okay? You see Judaism and Christianity. So this is it. As for the question, we don't blindly follow the text. Okay? We have to ponder about the other meanings of the text itself. Also, we don't take our religion from the persons, because as I've said in my comment on the word evil, we are all human beings. So we have to add. So how can you take a religion from a person who he is ignorant, who commits mistakes? So most of our religion, not all of it, is taken or derived from the text, but at the same time with the explanation of persons who are not higher than us, but whom God has bestowed upon them some genius. Some they are genius. They have God has specified them with some a higher degree from ourselves. But if you can go ahead and read the Quran or the Bible or the Torah or the whatever you like, you can be like we are not different from other people. Okay, we read the Quran, we read the Bible or the Torah, and we find something that other people can get or can reach if they read of the ponder of the meanings or the hidden meanings of the text.
That's a big question within paganism, that's sexual by no means. But some people claim to be Druids, for instance, and there's a big trouble because, frankly, they didn't write anything down, and then they were mass murdered, and that's proven. And so, but there's recreations, there's what people think, there's little groups and scraps. Some people are very into it. How can we say them nay? On the other hand, how legitimate is it? It's a big debate. It's ongoing. As a polytheist, a lot of our magical books were taken, burnt by the millions, taken in by the Vatican, still holding them. How much of ours is still legit? Thankfully, we have more of that than your average Druid. But, it's a problem. When you've been a persecuted minority or a persecuted religion for thousands of years, oral versus text does come into play. And it can create all kinds of artificial and negative division that doesn't need to be. There's point to tradition, and there's a need for it, and there's a need for perpetuating tradition, I think, in any belief system. But, if you go back 50,000 years, I think we all have a lot of things in common. We all started with stone tools, and some of us still use them.
Also, the Quran and the Torah or the Prophet, it is the word of God. So how can I, understand the infinite word of God with my infinite, the infinite word of God with my infinite mind? Our minds, they have limits. Okay, as it is, your mind has limits like your farsight, your hearing. There are limits.
Depends on how you define mind.
It's okay. It's something that we have to make use of to reach God.
Oh, that's more the brain.
Otherwise, then why God created us with minds? Why? There must be a use for that, that faculty.
That's great. So one other, maybe a Jewish or Christian response to the question of text, and then we'll shift to another question.
I would just say that I don't think that there could be Judaism without our scripture, but there also couldn't be there couldn't be scripture without Jewish people. That it's a dynamic, it's a relationship, and so it's not just the words on the page, but rather what the person brings, what all of the other generations of people have talked to amongst themselves about those texts, and it's in all of that great dialogue that somebody comes to be a living, dynamic Jew. So I think for Jews, we are very, very rooted in our texts. But it's a textual tradition that has gone on and on. It wasn't fixed just in our Torah, or even in the Hebrew Bible. It was an ongoing process and a conversation.
A never-ending conversation.
I think they're lining up. They're lining up. Oh, never mind. Yeah. They're all coming up. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, there was a question that really wasn't ever addressed about perspectives on war. And what I wanted to ask is, our society is filled with dysfunction, a lot of addiction and family problems and strife, and lots of prisons filling up, education suffering, money going to fund war, the military. And I wondered what various perspectives were on the responsibility of the individual and a person of faith in regards to war, and our society supporting and funding war and continuing to do that and not standing up for it. So what is religion here for if not to help preserve life? I was wondering.
Well, war is a terrible thing, and it's never good for there to be killing. And I know that just last night, a member of our church, they lost their grandson in Afghanistan, and it's a terrible experience. The young man was from Florida, and so they're going to be heading down to Florida for the funeral. So it's terribly sad anytime you talk about the violence of war. So to kind of give that Catholic perspective, it's a terrible thing. There is a just war theory, if you're familiar with the history of the just war theory, and that there are certain instances where it becomes necessary to defend oneself. So it's not like, it's like someone said, an ambulance, like you fund all the money for the ambulance, and ideally you never have to use it, but when you need one, then you're really grateful that it's there. So I think that's sort of the same perspective from the
ambulance is to protect life, not to kill people.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, war is not a good thing. It's not a good thing.
Witches would totally disagree with that theory. In fact, we, on our website, we teach people how to conscientiously object to, once they've even signed on the dotted line, we'll get them out. Call us up, we can get you out. We do that all the time, nationwide, any war, anytime. You can change your designation. We teach people how to do that. And they say, oh, no, you can't get out. Oh, yes, you can. We can show you how and do it all the time. We don't believe in the concept of a just war. We believe that war is a failure, not just to communicate, but a full-out failure in all kinds of ways. And most wars are not waged by defense, but offense. And in fact, invasion, let's be honest, and for, really bad ideas and quote, needs of maybe 1% of people, war profits, oil profits, land grabs. Come on, it's been going on for millennia now. That's enough of that.
So from an SGI perspective, it's absolutely wrong. There is no justification of it. And it's really a mirror of ourselves in our society at this time. I was talking a little bit earlier about how Buddhism really, if we point over there and say, well, that war over there, we each really have to look at ourselves and come back to, I'll just tell a little story because that's kind of how I am. 20 years ago, I was practicing, and another member said, I yelled at it was when the Desert Storm happened. Maybe that was 22 years ago. She came and she said, I yelled at my husband and I yelled at my kids and I went and chanted, and I realized, wow, if I'm having this conflict within my own family, that's contributing to war. So it's really every thought, word, action, and deed. And how do we get out of war? Well, we just have to really decide on every fibrous level. And much of the SGI's history comes out of Japan, post-war Japan, where people lived through 2 atomic bombs and saw, skin falling off of, from the bombings of people. I know Japanese war brides that are here. And, they have totally shouldered the weight of spreading this Buddhism, which is to promote the absolute dignity of human life. And so I'm really grateful to their training because they lived through it. Many of us haven't ever experienced it, firsthand.
Well, I'll say that gives a lot of hope, actually, for what you said, because if a person really can transform themselves, then the world can be transformed. I mean, if we can really do that, and the more people that do that, it makes sense.
And at the same time, to stand up together to call for change.
Okay, so we have time for just one more question.
So first of all, I want to say this is really beautiful to see such a diverse range of perspectives up here on the stage. But my question pertains to oneness and the idea of unity in the human family. I was wondering, how do you all foresee humanity overcoming the divisions and the illusion of separateness in our world, moving towards a place of peace and where we have a mutual understanding within the entire human family?
Can I speak to that? I think there's great beauty in appreciating both the unity of humanity and the diversity of humanity. I think that's expressed here on the stage, And I think it's important in addressing your question, to understand that unity doesn't have to mean uniformity. It certainly does not. And so for us to disagree, I think for us to be able to disagree, like you articulated, is a beautiful thing. Okay, so, like we were talking before, you guys, actually dinner was the best part. You guys should. But that we can meet and just, I was talking about my Muslim friends as well, that we can really disagree, but I will buy you a cup of coffee and talk about it. That is toleration. That's tolerance, right? Not that we all look different, but we think the same. Tolerance is, I could really disagree with you, and you come from a completely different perspective, but I will not destroy you because of it.
And I appreciate that you are nicer to me as an atheist than your God will be to me one day. If it's true. I wish that your God were as good as you. Your God should be worshiping you, not the other.
He's actually better.
There's one question to ask, really, as far as what I've gotten out of this. Okay? Prove it to me. Prove it to me. First of all, if there's a creator, is what got created going to be more expansive? Or on the same level? Or what's that? So explain yourself to me, sir, ma'am. It, he, she, it. Okay? Second thing is, if I don't understand something, we don't understand something, I've got 2 choices. The first choice is, I can take this thing that I don't understand, that's beyond myself, and I can try to fit it into my consciousness. I can try to put it in a box, and I can make it smaller, and I can try to find the right angle so I can try to understand it and prove it. Or I can allow my consciousness to expand in to this thing that I have no idea what it is. That's the 2 options.
We just might say that we're wheels within wheels, and that the reason that we seem so disconnected, even though we really are interconnected, is that we're on different paths at different times, with different cycles of life and reincarnation. That's why we seem so alien to each other, and yet, they're not with us yet, and we're not where they're at yet. And it doesn't mean that we're completely different, it's just they're not where we are yet, or maybe we're not where they are yet.
I think all the human beings, since the beginning of the life, which we don't know, so the end of the life, which we don't know as well, they agree in one thing, which is belief. Even the one who does not believe in anything, that's his belief. So there is no one that does not believe in anything. but he believes in either nothing, or does not believe in anything, or believe in whatever he wants to believe in.
I can agree with that, but I also would like to say we're all atheists with regard to most of the gods. Some of us just go one God further.
I think that our hope lies. I think that our hope lies in openness. If we can actually be open to each other, if we can hear each other, and if we can recognize when we are not open ourselves, then there will be progress. And if we are truly open to each other, then we will stand up together.
So actually, I'm sorry, just a moment. I'm going to have the last word. We are actually at our time and just slightly a few minutes over, and I'd like to be mindful of the time and be very grateful for all of the panelists who have come and spent their time working with our questions. From all of you. So again, I'm very grateful, and I believe the audience here is also very grateful. So two things. One, I'm going to invite the leaders of the Religious Studies Club and the Muslim Students Association, Hannah, Josh, and Amara, up just to say a note just at the end here. And then, if some of the panelists are able to say, maybe take some questions individually, or they might have to leave, so please don't barricade them in, because you have lots of questions, I'm sure. But again, just hold for just a few moments while I turn the mic over, and then we will wrap up the program for the evening.
Hi, I'm Hannah with Religious Studies Club, and I just want to thank you all so much for coming.
I'm Josh, also from Religious Studies Club, and if you guys are interested in events like this, we do a lot. We try to go to different religious sites, do visitations, celebrate holidays in our own way, just as a ability to learn. If you're interested in that, we have both a donation box, if you'd like to help support us, and a sign-up sheet to be on our mailing list, and if you'd like to be involved in any sort of way. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amara. I am part of the Muslim Student Association here, and yeah, we also have a sign-up sheet, and thank you for coming.
Thank you again to our panelists and to the audience tonight, and have a very good evening.
Thank you.